Go ahead.
Hi everybody, I'm Val Cuthbert. I am the business manager at South Creek Church, and we decided we would do a little how-to DIY video during this coronavirus episode that we're going through. I'm sure everybody's getting as bored as I could be if I wasn't painting a whole room upstairs, but I'm going to show you first how to make your own chalk paint. And then I will show you how I actually paint a piece of furniture. So this is the paint that I use. It is from Lowe's, Valspar Express Coat. The key is you have to buy paint that does not have primer in it. If it has primer in it, like if you want to try to use some paint that you already have and it's got primer in it, then when you add the plaster of Paris to make chalk paint, it gets really thick and it just does not work. So I've discovered this that works, and I also do an eggshell finish. So what I do first is, this is a 5.2 cup bowl, Rubbermaid, to give them a plug. So you always pour your paint in the bowl first. And the reason you do that is, if you put your plaster of Paris in first, and trust me, I've learned this by my own failure. If you don't get that paint poured in really fast and start stirring in that plaster of Paris, you'll have a whole layer of hard plaster of Paris in the bottom of your bowl by the time you get down to the bottom of it. So I've learned you put the paint in first, and then here's my handy dandy. I just use a bowl and a little whisk. You can tell I've been using this bowl for about 9 years now, if I think about how long I've been doing this. So I was kind of starting to chip away the stuff, and I may have made a mistake doing that. But anyway, I have a tablespoon in my container all the time. So I just do a little kind of heaped tablespoon. And I do 3 of these for that much paint. So 1, 2, 3. And then I start adding water to this to where, I don't know what you would say the consistency is that I get it, but like if you're making gravy, how you add water, I kind of get it just about that thick, where it's pretty runny, but I stir it as fast as I can to get the lumps out, which the lumps leave really fast. And then just as quickly, I start to pour it in, and I stir my paint as I'm pouring. So none of that plaster of Paris has a chance to harden up into anything, and it just gets mixed in with the paint. So you just have to move kind of quickly on that step, or you'll have big chunks in your paint in the bottom eventually. So then I stir this more than you probably think you should, just because I want to make sure all that plaster of Paris is in all of the paint. And I do about this much at a time because it paints several pieces of furniture, and then that way, by the time you've used this up, you'd be happy to have a fresh batch. So that's all there is to that. And then on our next step, I'll show you how to clean the furniture to be ready for the chalk paint. Okay, here we are. So there's lots of ways you can clean. There's some stuff called TSP that I used to use. You'd mix up with water and you can use that. But I've discovered this is really easy. You can get lots of this at Sam's Club, and it kind of, I feel like, does a really good job of getting it really clean. And the beauty of chalk paint, that people are always asking me, like, what's the big deal about chalk paint? Well, the big deal about chalk paint is you don't have to sand anything before you start painting, and you don't have to prime anything before you start painting. And I'm assuming it's because of the plaster of Paris that you put in it makes it really, the paint adhere to the wood really well. So then I just use a rag and I just wipe it all down. Now, needless to say, I've already taken all the pulls off. And I probably won't reuse the pulls that were on this because they're not very interesting. So I'll find something more fun to put on this, especially since I'm going to paint it such a cute yellow color. I typically paint most of my stuff antique white, but every now and then I can't resist adding a little color to a piece. So this one's gonna get that yellow that we mixed up. So I'm getting this really clean, and then on the next step, I will show you how I will paint on this. So it'll need to dry a little bit before we start to paint. Take one. Okay, so I ended up wiping this also with a wet rag because it was pretty dirty. It looked like it maybe had some nicotine on it. So I wiped it down with a wet rag also that time. So here's the two brushes I use. I usually use the bigger one as much as I can because it goes faster. And I have decided I do like a natural bristle brush best. They seem to put on a smoother coat. So when I do my larger sections, I use this. And you can see I propped it up on some stands that these are to put on under a bed to make the bed taller, and I find them at Goodwill. So it's just nice to have it a little bit easier reach. So I just start brushing it on. You don't have to be real tidy about it. The first coat, you kind of look at it as it's just your primer coat. So it doesn't go on super thick on the first coat, but then by the time you do the second coat, it really covers nicely. So I just do this until I get it done. So we will maybe do a shameless plug right now for our store. My daughter and husband and I have Kova and Company on Mulberry, and we do this, and we have repurposed furniture and home decor, and everything's pretty much one of a kind pieces. So right now we're not open, of course, but hopefully we'll be back soon. We are posting things online on Facebook and Instagram, so follow us and then you'll see what we have. And so we all do this together. The Kova, just to explain so you will remember the name, is Colby, C-O, and Val, B-A, Kova. And it's Kova because Vaco sounded weird.
Very.
So that'll help you to remember our name. And we're on West Mulberry, 107. And you can even do a drive-by and look in our windows. We won't call the police, I promise. But right now, I'm back in the back of our store, which is where our
It's a little scary right now.
Yes, we have an abundance of furniture that needs to be painted. We have a whole trailer full even. So I just made myself a spot to do this. And so now I will cut, and I'll get this all coated with one coat of paint and let it dry, and then we will do the second coat. Okay, so I have the first coat on everything, and I don't have my person hold the phone anymore, so I'm gonna have to just keep the phone right where it is. But I do have the drawer fronts done, and then I'm just gonna show you on the top here how to do the second coat. So I still got my big natural bristle brush, and the key to this is you can't really brush over it much once you get that coat on it because it kind of pulls the first coat off. So you just have to work kind of fast and try not to brush back over it too much, because once it has a chance to soak into that first coat, if you work on it too much, it kind of pulls it right back off. So with the second coat, I try to put it on pretty thick. I get a lot of paint on my brush, and you can't really judge it so much by what it looks like with this coat because you're tempted to kind of feel like you need to make it thicker, but trust me, when it dries, it looks great. It kind of allows it to show through a little bit, like it's not a solid coat. And then when you wax it, it really just sort of pulls it all together. So it is totally trial and error though when you first start doing this to get it the way you want it to look. If you like it to look solid, then you just have to do another coat, which is always an option too. It just depends what look you're going for. So I will do this second coat on the whole thing, and then our next step will be the distressing part, which is basically sanding the edges and making it look like it's worn or been used lovingly for a lot of years, like it's been around for a while. So I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, so now I've let this dry, the second coat, for a couple of hours anyway. We ate some pizza, had a little dinner. So I have already started sanding on this a little bit, but I'm going to show you, ouch, how I do the top. So I use a palm sander, and you can use just a piece of sandpaper. Also, this is what Colby used earlier, which actually goes to this, but she just uses it manually. So it's going to be a little loud here for a second, but I'll just kind of show you how I just hit the edges. So it's just that easy. I always run over all the flat surfaces also, and then it takes a little bit off like it's been worn. And then it also makes it a nice smooth finish for when I wax it, that it feels really nice. So I've done that on all the edges. Let me show you. I think I can see if I can show you this. So here are the drawers that I already did. You can kind of see how, let me see if I can get the edge. Where's the edge? I can't find the edge. I can't see. Anyway, so I've just sort of hit all the edges and all the flat surfaces to make it smooth. So then I've also done the dresser. So now it is time to wax. So I will get set up for that. Okay, so now we're ready to wax. And I use this Minwax Paste Finishing Wax. And I've tried other ones, and they do have some out there that are like white and black and all different things. But I have really I try those, and then I go right back to my good old standby. So I just use a piece of an old t-shirt of my husband's. I just cut a little piece, and I just start wiping it on. Trying to hit it all. What this does is it seals it, so it's waterproof, and it also seals the paint, so then you have a really nice finish that's real smooth and it feels good to the touch, and makes it just look and feel very professionally done. So that's what I'll say I am. I'm a professional in my own mind. So a couple things I thought of as I've been doing this. One is when you're painting your piece of furniture, I always paint with the wood grain. So depending on the way that you see the wood, then that's the way that I would paint it. So on the sides, as an example, like this piece that right here goes this way, but then these go this way. So that's the direction I always try to paint things. And it seems to make it look cohesive when you're finished, so you don't have paint lines going in weird directions. So you can see on this maybe that you can sort of see through the paint, but I like that look. I think it makes it look a little more aged and vintage, and I just like it. So that's typically how I make it look. But like I said, if you put an extra coat on, then you can get it totally covered. And then the other little hint or tip I have is people get nervous about doing the sanding, distressing part. And I always say, you really can't mess that up. You really just take your sander and you just start sanding on the edges, and it always ends up looking like that's the way it was meant to look. So I've never had a piece where I thought, oh, that was not right. I usually just go with it and it is perfect. So after you get the wax on, get it all covered, then I'll take a bigger piece of white cloth, and then you basically just buff that, and it kind of takes the excess off. It's kind of like waxing a car, basically. How the wax on a car will turn white, and then you know it's time to wipe it. So then once you do that, then it just feels nice and smooth and just what you were hoping for. So now our next step is going to be to put all the poles back on. So at this time, I'm trying to decide which ones I want to put on, whether I'm going to put the original ones back on or pick something else. The original ones are just these that you see a lot. Don't love them, but sometimes I can paint them and make them look a little nicer. So when I come back, we'll see what I decided. Okay, here we have our finished product, and I will do my Vanna flip for you. And I did decide to just reuse the poles that were on it for multiple reasons. One is it's cheaper. They're already there. And Hobby Lobby's probably not open right now. And then I don't have to get my husband involved with drilling new holes and doing all that. So I use this metallic accents paint that I get at Lowe's, and I just dry brush them a little bit when they're off of the drawers, of course. And voila, it's done. So one thing I want to let you know is if you don't have any plaster of Paris right now and you really have something you want to try to paint during this time when you're stuck at home, you can use latex paint. Just make sure you do sand your piece a little bit so that it adheres well. And I just pray that everyone is staying safe and coronavirus free during this time. And if you want to see some of the other pieces of furniture that Colby and I have painted, you can go to our Facebook page, Kova and Company on Mulberry. And then if you have any other questions for me about painting furniture, I would be happy to answer those for you. So everyone, just remember to stay focused on God during this time and that He's still in control. Bye.